Okay, well, let's just start. First of all, hi, Julie.
Hi, Aaron Hendon from
Good to
Christine
see
and Company.
you over at EXP. And Julie, so it's just great to see you. I love doing this with you. I think this is a great
Likewise.
idea.
Likewise, yeah.
Very cool. All right, so moving up, moving out, downsizing, right, in a
Yeah.
crazy market because there's no inventory. I mean, what the biggest
know.
problem I think that people have in this is where are they going to go?
Yeah.
How do they get that to work? And there's a lot of creative solutions to that we wanted to discuss, but I want to start with whatever you thought, whatever you find is the either the most asked question or the question people should be asking that they're not asking to you. What do you encounter?
Yeah. Well, I'll share apropos of 2020, since
Yeah.
that is in fact the year we're in, for 16 more days. 16
Cannot
more
end
days
quickly.
before we turn over into this new year. And I will celebrate that evening. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Although certainly there have been some blessings this year. But one of the most prevalent questions that has come at me in apropos of 2020 is I really want to make a change, right? We have people who want to move cities. We have people who want to move structure. So they are in a condo or townhome and they're like, oh my gosh, I need a yard right now, right? So how do I make a move right now? A lot of clients I've never sold before. So what does that even look like is a question that arises, but also, oh crud, I just saw a property that I absolutely love. Now I gotta work backwards to see what am I going to do to make that happen.
Yeah.
And so it's a buy first, sell first. How does it work? Blended conversation, right?
Yeah. That thing about planning it, right, seems to stop a lot of people. And then they wind up in the position of having found a place and not knowing what to do and having no access to it, which is a big reason why I think we wanted to do this, was to, let people know there really are solutions and here are the first steps. And then here are the things you're likely to encounter down the road in making that move. So what do you think, when you look at first steps, what do you see?
Well, first things first is kind of a buy first versus sell first conversation.
Right.
There's two primary things that fall into that, right, Aaron? One is, can I support two mortgages with my income?
Yeah.
Right. Maybe our income, maybe I was single. Now I'm a joint household of any variety, but I now have two incomes. I was one. Okay. Then maybe you really can support two mortgages, or maybe, gosh, what you could have afforded when you initially bought was much higher and you bought lower. So the first question that arises automatically is, okay, can you pay two mortgages?
Yeah.
Right? Can you hold that? Right? Because a lot of people are like, gosh, I don't want to sell if I don't have anywhere to go. Why am I going to do that? That's terrible.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the first question. Can I support two mortgages or can our family in some way? The other question is money, right? Do I have down payment separate from the equity that I have in our home? If I don't, then can I tap into that equity? Yes, there are a couple answers. Some of them are not great. Some of them are okay. Right? So
it's going to cost you more to tap into the equity than if you had it.
It's going to cost you more, and it's going to be more complicated, right? For a myriad of reasons, qualifying, costs, like bridge loans. A bridge loan sounds very appealing. I'm not going to say that it's not. I think it meets a certain need. I will be blunt and say they're very expensive. Right? They definitely eke into your profitability there, right? Because it's a really quick loan. So how does a lender in a moment grab a profit on a loan that's going to be out for 30, 60, 90 days is kind of where those, Caliber doesn't do them directly, but we do work with lenders who do. How do they eke a profit out of that? Well, they're expensive, right?
Yeah.
So, sometimes when we're looking out for our consumers, we're like, I don't know about that, right?
Right. Because that is the first thing that people think of is like, HELOC is often is a HELOC a better option for people like
Usually
that?
a home equity line of credit's a better option. The one thing to watch out for on a HELOC is there's some lenders, like there's a couple credit unions, some big ones that we all could name. I won't name them here, but that we could name, who really say, okay, if you're living in the property now, they will only do a HELOC as if it's your primary residence. And it says in their paperwork, this is good as long as you keep it your primary residence. Well, that's a red flag because, gosh, you're taking the HELOC out of your primary residence because you want to buy a new one, right?
Right.
So if you're looking to buy a new place to call home, like to come home to, that might not be your best
And
conversation.
so that's not every lender across the board?
That's not every lender. In fact, there are lenders that I use where we just are straightforward about that. We say, hey, we're going to be turning this into a rental. So yeah, is the rate a little bit higher? Yeah, but again, we're tapping into the equity with a HELOC, almost always thinking, gosh, we're going to sell. So we don't care, even if the rate on that option is 5.5 and people say, oh, that's terrible. Well, it's not really terrible if you only have it for 60 or 90 days.
Right.
Because you buy, you're in safely.
Right.
You're selling your house, right? So it's not a long-term rate conversation.
Yeah. And those solutions, I mean, just from the realty side, first of all, I always tell people you can't talk to me until you've talked to your lender. I mean, there's no, I don't have anything to say to you. I don't have any, for everything changes on the lending side so often. And I'm so not a detail guy, like I'm just
not on the loan side. Yeah. Right.
And I'm just not going to keep track of it in the way that I can represent my client's interests. So you need to talk to your lender or my lender, right? Preferably about what your options are so that you can talk to me about what you want to do. Because from the real estate side, in this market, it should be no problem selling your house. I mean, we could put a box on the side of the road and put a for sale sign on it and get it sold for more than we were asking for it.
Quite often.
More times than not. Okay. We have yet to see it slow down, and I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't know. But right now, it doesn't look like it's slowing down.
Yeah.
So the sell side should be fairly straightforward, but if you want to maximize the value of your house, you need to move. You've got to be out of it. You're going to get more for it out of it than you are when you're living in it. Almost every time. A
staged home sells better than an empty home, and it certainly sells better than a personally lived in.
Yes. Almost every time.
Here's all my personal stuff. Yeah.
I just am closing on one now. I've a couple in the works where they were living in it. And frankly, and now that I've said it out loud and I'm looking at the most recent sales I had, they all lived in it. And I think mostly because the market is so hot that if you can get it cleaned up, it's not, part of the problem with a lived in house is that if the market is slow, it's a real hassle.
Yeah.
To live in and keep it show ready. But
people coming. Yeah.
In the last 3 or 4 sales, or easily last probably 10 sales as a team we've had, they've sold in 3 or 4 days. So they had to move out for the weekend.
Yeah.
Just get an Airbnb for the weekend and go, or don't be home, and we'll just show your house and sell it in 3 or 4 days, which is super easy. So, but as a rule, and especially, I'm thinking about a particular client now that, has a house they lived in for 15 years. Well, if you have 15 years, 20 years worth of stuff, you're just not going to get that show ready. You're not
you don't even know where to look to edit it out because you've got 15 years of stuff, right? You need someone who has no attachment to the house to come on in and say, okay, you got to move this, you got to do this.
Yeah. So from those perspectives, and then the more expensive the house, the longer you can anticipate it selling. Houses over the $1 million marks tend to sit a little bit longer. So from that perspective, it's going to be easier for you to buy a house and then move into it,
right?
Get your house cleaned up, staged, repaired, and sold. It will be a much, you'll probably make the return on that will cover the additional expense of the bridge loan. And especially if you start to put a dollar amount on the hassle.
Yeah.
Quotient, hassle function of the whole thing. So then it really does become like, all right, how do we finance that? Because then the other thing is if you sold the house first, well, where are you going to go? You don't really, this is the problem a lot of people face is they think they have to sell first. They have to sell first so they have the equity. And we can get you almost in every case a 30 to 60 day rent back. We're not going to get you more than a 60-day rent back. So let me just say what a rent back is because not everybody knows.
Yeah, I was going to say, why don't you share a little bit about what a rent back is?
Rent back is you sell the house, the new owner rents it back to you.
Yeah.
And they can rent it back to you for no more than 60 days. Because if it's more than 60 days, their loan turns into a non-occupied loan. They have to.
Yeah, that's right. People buying homes have to occupy them usually within 60 days. That's
with
the
60
rule
days
across
So
the
you-
guideline. Yeah.
Right. So that gives you, 30 to 45 days to find a house.
Right.
Okay. I mean, really, honestly, if you took the full 60, you wouldn't have, you'd have to get the house you're selling sort of past appraisal. So maybe 15 days in, and then you'd have those 15 days plus 30 more days to shop. And then you'd have to be under contract in the new house because that house needs 30 days to close.
Yeah, you got to close. Yeah.
So you got to be out at 60. So you're at most going to have 45 days to buy. Now,
Right.
you can do that. You can totally do that. We can find you a house. It really does then depend on how picky you are,
Right.
how demanding you are, what your needs are. Are you how I always tell people, look, there is no inherent value in any house. There's no, what's this house worth? Like really worth? It's what it's worth to you. Because
Right.
what do you care what it's worth to someone who wants to live? I live on Vashon. I have clients that don't want to live on Vashon. So it doesn't matter what house comes up for sale here. It's not worth anything to them.
Right. I don't want to move to the island. Yeah. Right.
They don't want to live here. And I have clients that only want to live on Vashon. So houses are worth way more to them. So It's not what's it worth. It's what's it worth to you. Now, how flexible are you with that? Because if you could live anywhere, we can find you a house in 45 days. We definitely can.
Right.
Do it all the time. But you can't find the house. You can't find, you can't be picky about that.
Yeah.
But you could sell and get that to work. And, there's all those aspects. And then there's buying contingent, which is, again, you'd have to be
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So contingent means you go put down an offer on a house, you find the house you want, and you say, okay, Mrs. Seller, Julie Jones, we love your house. We'd like to put an offer on your house. Here, we're going to offer you your full price, and we're going to but we need a contingency that says, if my house doesn't sell, I don't have to buy your house.
Right.
Okay. So I'm buying your house contingent upon the sale of my house. All right. Well, if obviously, I don't know if obvious is the right word there, but in any kind of competitive market, no one's going to take that offer.
Yeah, it's not very competitive, right? You're as a seller, you're taking a risk of taking your house off the market, agreeing to accept this contingent offer, taking your home off the market. Not that another buyer can't come in and quote bump you, but it's just more of a hassle. And there's a lot of pressure. A buyer who doesn't have a home to sell is more competitive.
Way more competitive.
Always.
Right? So you'd have to offer more. Yeah. And that thing about bumping that you mentioned, which people don't often get either. So let's talk about that for a second. So I write an offer on your house, Julie.
Yep.
And now I'm putting my house on the market and it's sitting there on the market for 5 days. You find another buyer that's willing to put an offer in for as much or more, or frankly, even less, that is non-contingent.
It's ready to go.
It's ready to go. You have to give me notice, usually 3 days.
Yep.
And I get to either decide I'm going to waive my contingency.
Right.
Or I'm going to walk away. But walking away is a problem because I got my house on the market.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't want to walk away.
And you've mentally and emotionally moved in a little bit, right? We can't really help that.
Way more than a little bit, right? So that contingency is not only risky for the seller to accept, but it's risky for the buyer to offer because it can be bumped.
Yep.
So unless you find a house that's been on the market for, I would say in a hot market like we have in Seattle for 30 days.
Yep.
Where everyone's seen it and no one's come in yet, and the seller is somewhat desperate and looking for an offer, you're just not going to be competitive with a contingent offer in this market. So you've got to go back to handling it one of the other ways because a contingency is just not going to cut it. It's not going to be safe for you and it's not going to be safe for them.
Yeah. Now, one of the things I was going to say is, okay, so let's say you're able to support the 2 payments. Now, you
Yeah.
don't want to long term, but you're able to support the 2 payments, but you don't have a lot of money. Listen, one of the things you can talk to your lender about, or, if you're my client, you can talk to me about is, okay, what if we put minimum down just to get in? And then when we sell our house, we're going to have this chunk of money. Can we put it towards our loan and lower the payment? The answer almost always is yes. And it's called a recast. We're going to put a chunk of money towards our home loan. We want our payments down because our balance is going to be down. The lender can work with you to recast at that lower amount. So sometimes people get scared. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I only have minimum down, but man, I don't want that mortgage payment long term. You're not stuck, right? You're almost never stuck. You have some options to take that money.
And that recast is that recast like refinancing? Do I pay another origination fee, or am I just paying down the principal?
Question. So yeah, difference refinance versus recast. A recast is you have the closed interest rate. So whatever your interest rate is when you close on the purchase, that stays. You usually pay about $250 because we have to take your loan out of servicing and collect the payment from you. Usually you have to have a minimum of $25,000. Caliber only says 5,000. You can put as little as 5,000, and we let you do it every year on conventional loans. We're a little unique that way.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So you have to have a minimum of $5,000. Some lenders say 25. We say 5. You pay a fee like $250. We're going to take the loan out of servicing. You're going to tell us, okay, we want to put $35,000 down, making it up. We say, great. Your loan balance is now $35,000 less, and we're going to re-amortize that balance over the remaining term. If you've taken out a 30-year loan, Aaron, and you're only 3 months in, okay, well, you got 357 months of that lower balance at the same interest rate.
Good. So that's the recasting
awesome,
part. So
right?
It's not just like I'm paying down the balance. It's actually paying down the balance and recasting the payment.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Because otherwise I could just pay down the balance, keep the same payment, and get out of it sooner.
Yeah. And that's called prepayment. So for those listening, or, if we share this recording in the future, that's called prepayment. I'm going to prepay. And what happens is if you simply prepay, like you pay extra on your every month, or you put a chunk down, your payments never automatically shift on a standard fixed loan. What happens is, let's say it's a 30-year fixed. The beginning years are mostly interest. The middle is half principal, half interest in that payment. And the last years are all principal, right? The last 3, 5, 7 years, depending on the rate. Well, gosh, if you've paid a whole chunk down, those years don't exist. So you're going to keep paying, and then you're going to hit the cliff. It's no longer a 30-year fixed. You're done in 23 years. Right. So that's prepayment. Just for those.
That's what it's good, because I haven't dealt with recasting because we take an extra payment.
Yeah.
A year, right? We divided one payment by 12 and add it to every check. So, but that's very cool. So people can do that with their money if they can. It's bridging themselves if they have enough.
That's right.
Down payment just to get into the new house.
That's right.
Which is what, 3.5%? I mean, what do you need now?
Oh, down payment, 3.5% to 5%.
Okay. And that gets you into that new house and you don't have to really sweat the payment as much because we're going to sell your house easily and for way more than you expect.
Yeah. Conventional, the 5% down conventional recasting is typically the most common.
Okay. Mm-hmm. But that's a great option for people that don't know about it. So really the key is you got to get with a lender and look at what all your options are, what you can afford, and then start working with the realtor to decide, okay, well, I don't like fussy as a word here. It makes a negative pejorative. I don't mean fussy. I mean, how tight are you with the constraints with which moving makes sense?
Yeah.
If you need a house with X number of rooms and it needs to be this far of a commute, all right, well, that's a limit, and you need to know how long it predictably will take to find a house like that. Knowing full well that this is almost universally, any house you find today that you fall in love with, you cannot get if you haven't done this first work.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I'm going through that right now with some clients, right? So they were kind of quietly looking. I didn't know, quietly looking. All of a sudden, their dream home has popped up today. Offers are due tomorrow at noon. So it's this scramble, right? And the worst thing to do is to fall in love with a house and find out, gosh, I can't figure out a way to make it work, right?
It
It is
happens all the
the
time. It's really,
worst for an agent, for a lender, for most importantly, for the humans we serve, right?
yes.
The
Well, that's why we
worst
won't,
thing.
right.
Yeah,
We don't, no one on our team, and I preach this all the time, do not get in your car. Well, no one gets in a car anymore, but
I know, right?
do not talk about showing houses to people that are not pre-approved, because it's first of all, it's heartbreaking, for that scenario you just said. Plus, it's damaging in that, we're biased. We have our cognitive biases will leave us disappointed.
Yeah, that was the house. That was the house. Yeah.
Because we didn't have it. It just won't be available to us. And we'll just always compare everything to the one that got away.
Yeah.
We all know people that do that with relationships. Well, it's insanity.
Yeah.
Nothing ever got away. You are where you are. This is it.
Yeah. And I would say to those who are like, yeah, but I'm not really motivated unless I find that dream house. Well, here's what I would say. If people are in right now, the house that they have any inclination, or townhome or condo, is not it for them longer than a year. I guess I would say a year. You might even say 3 to 6 months. I don't know. But
I would say 2 years.
Okay, great. So within the next 12 to 24 months, if you're looking around at the walls, right, and you're like, this isn't it. This is fine, and it isn't it. Then now literally is the time to talk to a lender and be like, okay, great. So if something does pop up, whether it's tomorrow or in 23 months, how would I make that happen? Then you put it in your pocket. And maybe it's another 23 months, but at least you have it in your pocket.
That's right.
You know how to go. Right.
And not only that, but if you find out it is 23 months, well, okay, you can stop looking and stabbing yourself in the heart. And you can take X amount of dollars and put it into the landscaping, or redo the bathroom, or take the time to do the things in the house that'll make the house great for you for 23 months. Because
that's what I was going to say. That's why they would want to talk to you too. Hey, Aaron, we haven't seen anything that's going to pull us out of this house, but we want to know we want to be pulled out of this house. Just so you know, it's our intention to find something else. Then now is also the time to talk to you to find out, okay, tell us. All right, I heard you say that staging thing, or I heard what would you tell us right now we could work on now?
Yeah.
And then eventually slowly edit out or get done. There's no better time when you're not under stress about it. Right.
Totally. And, so the thing about remodeling and all the things you can do to add value to your house, it's funny, if you Google most profitable remodels, highest ROI remodels, highest return on investment remodels, what you get back from the Google machine is really the least bad ROI. There's never one that's over 100.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do to your house that's going to, I'll tell you a couple of things you can do, but no remodel work you're ever going to do your house is going to return you $1.25 for every dollar you spend.
Yeah, that's right.
If you're out to sell your house, don't do the bathroom.
Go overboard. Yeah.
It's just almost nothing you do, right? Unless you swing the hammer yourself. Okay, if you swing a hammer
and have the skills to swing the hammer yourself.
Obviously. So, but if you look at the things you can do that produce a positive ROI, it's all cosmetic.
Yeah, the beautification of the property.
All of it. Landscaping, anything about the drive up to the house, the curb appeal, paint, doors, landscape,
flooring.
Flooring. Now, I wouldn't even do flooring inside. Flooring is going to be one of those things that. Did you say
personal? I said flooring. Yeah,
flooring is a remodel already. Paint, neutral color paint. But that said, so those things are going to produce a positive ROI, okay? Because you can probably paint yourself. And even if you can't, it's going to come super close to being a positive ROI. Landscaping, things like that. The flooring, redoing the kitchen, redoing the bath.
No kitchen remodel. That's terrible.
I know, but
think
but
you're
here's
gonna
the
get
deal.
it.
So if you're there for 23 months, okay, well then those things will bring you. And again, I think it's worth monetizing or at least putting a monetary value on,
Yeah.
what it's like for you to live in that house with the new kitchen for 20 of those 23 months,
Yeah.
how much joy, how much pleasure, how much does that give you? Because 23 months from now, all things being equal, the house will be worth more and you will get what you put into it because you
Right.
waited 23 months,
Yeah.
right? Not because the kitchen, but you will have gotten the joy of the kitchen or the flooring or anything.
Yeah.
It's just the quick turn things on that, unless you're someone who flips houses and you do it and you have a crew, you as private homeowner aren't going to see a positive ROI on any remodels. So you don't have to, people sometimes don't want to move up because they're like, well, I just have to finish this house.
Yeah, that happens
Right?
a lot.
I'm not done.
Yeah.
No, you're done with it, man. You're done with the house. This is it. If you're done with the house, you're done with the house. Let someone else finish it. It's not going to pay you back. You're not on flip this house.
Yeah. And I feel like that's especially true right now. Those little nuggets that you just shared, right? The beautification of it, just cosmetics. So, okay, so forget I even said flooring, right?
Yeah.
Although I will say if the carpet's super stained or something, maybe, but
Yeah,
that would be
maybe.
enough, right? But
Yeah.
anyway, listen, the beautification, especially now, because to your point, we're not really getting in cars and driving around and looking at homes. People are looking at homes online,
Yes.
right? They're choosing yes or no, I'm interested based on a series of photos. So that beautification, that exterior, right? All of that, those little things could go miles.
And those things will all produce more money. So
Yeah.
if you're afraid to move up, move out, or downsize because your house isn't ready, that concern can just go to the side because your house is ready. It's nothing you're going to do to it is going to add enough value to make it worth waiting to do it.
Yeah.
Now, if you go to a lender and the lender says you're not ready for 23 months, great. Well, let's talk about doing it because the 23 months will pay you back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you can get that done and still save the money you need for the down payment in 23 months, then that's something you can work with.
Totally. By the way, I originally referenced 23 months because I was like, what if that perfect home doesn't come up for 23 months? What if it just takes you that long? You could be ready now, but it's not going to, you just haven't seen it.
Right.
I still want you ready now because then you know how empowered you are to just go. Let's say it takes a year for that next house to really get you, but you are ready because you've had the conversation.
Right.
And you've edited and done whatever you've done. You're ready to just roll.
Yeah.
Right?
Good. Very cool. All right. Well, I think giving people the place to start and that there really are pathways.
For sure. Multiple pathways.
Multiple pathways. And you can do it. You can totally, I've done 2, 3. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. I have 3 move up buyers in the past 2 months, where we did a buy sell of their house.
Yeah.
And, worked it out.
You just make it work. Yeah.
It's totally workable if first of all, the first steps are to ask the professionals, either Julie or myself, start with one and they'll send you to the other.
Yeah. Right.
All right, here's my situation. What are our options?
Totally.
And then you move from there.
Yeah. And you're empowered to move from there.
Yeah.
Especially if you self-select out, like, oh, I've got to do this work, or I've got to save money, or I've got to blah, blah, blah. The moment you select out without talking to a professional is the moment I would say you do yourself a disservice.
Totally.
Because I feel like 9 out of 10 times, maybe I should knock on wood, but I feel like 9 out of 10 times I get to be delivering great news and you do too.
Totally. Right? We're not talking about first-time home buyers on this particular video, but that's always the case with first-time home buyers.
Yeah,
it's always the case. Nothing bad ever happens from dealing with what's so.
Yep.
You're not in the house of your dreams right now. And what's the worst thing a lender's going to tell you? You can't get it for 10 months. Okay. But you don't have it now. Only in a better position. You're always in a better position after you find out what's so.
Amen. Totally.
Yeah. Cool.
Right.
All right. Well, let's leave it there.
Let's leave it. We could chat forever, but at some point we get boring to look at, with all due respect to us,
Well,
but
you can speak for me, but I don't get bored looking at you, but that's okay.
Oh, well, you're very sweet. But I do love this conversation. I think it's a crazy time of year. I'd love to just start the year off having these open conversations with different Interesting.
Yeah, I think if people have particular real estate questions that they want us to discuss, they should let us know, and maybe we can,
Yes,
you know,
please bring it on.
I'm talking to a woman who sells wine that's, you know, got no additives or anything, and she does wine tastings.
Oh,
And I think we're going to have to do a wine tasting,
Zoom
Julie.
wine tasting. I mean, come on.
You are my wine tasting lender, so we are going to work
Let's
that
do
out.
it.
I'm
Let's
on a
do
call
it.
with her on Friday, so we'll work that out. Anyway,
All right,
Julie
great.
Jones, Caliber Home Loans, love
Aaron
you.
Hendon, EXP, I love you too.
Good.
All right, happy holidays.
Happy holidays, honey.
Okay.
Love you. Bye.
Love you too back.